So welcome to the DSAI's AI in Higher Education webinar series. My name is Pani Kindeu. I am a professor in the Department of Educational Psychology in the College of Education and Human Development and also core member of DSAI. DSAI's AI in Higher Education webinar series is a monthly forum to explore generative AI in academia. The webinar is hosted by the Data Science and AI Hub at our university, the University of Minnesota. And DSAI is an inclusive hub driving innovation dedicated to the communication, coordination, and amplification of the current data science and AI activities at the University of Minnesota. We are really excited to welcome Dr. Di Liu from Carlson School of Management, who will lead the webinar today. The title of his talk is ChatGPT and Beyond, Harnessing Generative AI for Effective Learning. A few logistics before we begin. Please use the Zoom Q&A box to submit your questions as they arise overall. And Dr. Liu will address these questions throughout his talk, but also at the very end. We have about 45 to 50 minutes plan of presentation to share. And there will be opportunities to ask and get your questions answered, as I mentioned, during the talk, but also at the very end. Before we begin, a brief introduction about our speaker today. Dr. Liu, thank you so much for joining us. He is a Xian Jing Professor of Information and Decision Sciences at the Carlson School of Management at the University of Minnesota, and the principal investigator behind SmartPAL, a gamified generative AI-powered digital assistant for students and instructors. And I'm pretty sure we're going to learn more about this amazing work in a few minutes. So without further ado, Dr. Liu, if you want to get us started here.
Thank you, Pani. And thank you for the opportunity to share and join this conversation about AI and education, something I know many of us are passionate about. There's so many questions and so many questions need to be answered. And let me get started by sharing my slide. Okay. Can you see my slide? Okay, I see them hands. And it's a great pleasure to share some of my research and thinking along the lines of how ChatGPT is impacting learning and how we can shape it. So I'll briefly give you a little bit introduction of my background. As Pani already mentioned, I'm in Carlson School, and in terms I've done I'm also the academic director of our management, a Master of Science in Business Analytics program. In the last 14 years, I've been teaching big data analytics to our master's students, among other courses. Research-wise, I've been doing research in gamification, in health and learning, and social media platforms, online platforms, and more recently, I started doing more research on AI and chatbot. And I'm happy to share that all of my teaching and research background had led me to kind of recently embark on a project called SmartPAL, which is the AI-enabled platform to support students and teachers, which I will talk about in a minute. So today I would like to lay out my presentation and in few parts. One is I'll do a very brief background and motivation for the studies I'm conducting. And then I first will talk about a field experiment that we've done studying the impact of ChatGPT on learning. And also then I'll move on to, and then I'll take a break and take some questions then. And also I'll then delve into SmartPAL, how we design a SmartPAL and what effect it has, and the thinking around it, how we can continue this journey of using generative AI for productive use in learning. And then we'll leave some time again at the end for a question and answering. So without further ado, I'll get started. And so as we know, I think all of you guys coming here would agree that the generative AI is poised to transform education, and in many different ways, whether we like it or not. One perspective coming from is actually from Duolingo. It's one of the most popular language learning app. The CEO actually made a very a statement that draws a lot of attention, media attention. He believes a future where AI can deliver personal education more effectively than traditional classroom models and teachers. Not only that, he foresees a future where AI tutors handles most of the teaching while schools primarily serve as a safe environment for children. As a teacher, I feel like very threatened by that message. I think many of you might think the same way. Incidentally, the Duolingo as a online learning platform not only talk about this AI first vision, but actually they practiced. According to the reporting, they roll out over 100 different courses that are created by AI, and also had a statement where they would refuse to hire human course experts or human collaborators when AI can do the job. But unfortunately, that led to a backlash, and people find these courses having quality issues and having problems. And also, people did not like a future where humans are kind of being marginalized by AI rule. But actually, that's one vision, or there's one aspect that could change the education in terms of the role of AI and the role of a teacher. On the learning side, it's also changing already. And so we have heard so many parents and educators, education institutions are worried about the students' pervasive use of AI will destroy their critical thinking, not in K-12, but throughout, in higher education, even in the workplace. There are a lot of concerns, and some evidence start to come out too. But that actually the answer to this sort of questions impact how we should treat AI in learning settings. So not only the teachers or in education institutions are feeling the impact of AI, but students are feeling too. So this is one interesting report on how students are feeling about AI. They worry actually whether when they use AI, whether they learn something. But interestingly, they would want it anyways. So that just shows a lot of tensions and trends are going on, but they're sometimes not too many answers. The question is, though, many of these news we might treat as if you're teachers, your education institution, you might treat as threatening news. But what about our role at high education or K-12, our role in shaping the AI conversation? I think this article by Rebecca resonated with me a lot in the sense that the Gen AI is coming for our students, whether you like it or not, but we need to play active role in shaping it. We means not just leave the entire problem to tech companies or big firms, big tech firms. We as education institutions try to actually need to ensure that our pedagogical goals and environments and learning outcomes are actually followed in the new AI-enabled learning world. And there are several points made by this article I find it very valuable. First, it was pointed out, the AI innovation come from the tech industry. Initially, at least, they're not the specific design for education. The incentives may not be aligned. And also, sometimes I feel like teachers and students are not necessarily put in the center. The needs of teachers and needs of students are we ensuring the learning outcomes, are ensuring not just the usage, but actually the students are engaged and learned. And also in the meantime, there's also need in education as kind of the fertile ground for training students on future workforce on learning AI literacy? Can we leverage this opportunity and play active role in ensuring our future workers and future managers and innovators have AI literacy and AI confidence, so they can be a competent workforce in the AI area? So these are some of the active aspects I think this we as educators, education institutions should play more active roles rather than leaving the question to the, as I mentioned, to the tech platforms. One other aspect is it could be disorienting when a lot of the news are changing our status quo and we feel threatened. But at the same time, AI as a general purpose technology has a lot of upside too. We have been talking about personal education. We talk about adaptive learning and enhancing feedback and uses as tutors, as coaches, advisors, and so on and so forth. So not only I think there's it seems to me that there isn't there's not yet enough effort and actions around capitalize the general AI for solving our existing challenges in education, which as a teacher, we know there are plenty. Okay, so with that background, I want to kind of focus on these our first study is we're often concerned that our students are using AI left and right from K to 12 into undergrad to graduate schools. They are using whether or not we explicitly allow them. And there are concerns that these type of usage could hurt learning. And sometimes with some evidence, but sometimes they're not coming with the kind of data-driven evidence. So we need to actually understand these better. Are there upsides? Are there downsides? And how can we capitalize on the upside and minimize the downsides? So that led to our study. It's about, is ChatGPT a boon or bane for learning? This is I've done with two my collaborators. Professor Teng is in my department, and Andy Lee is my used to be my visiting scholar, but now in the Chinese University, and we've been collaborating on this journey. So, how we are approaching this question? So we're approaching the question from the perspective, imagine that students are using ChatGPT or other favorite tools, Gemini, Copilot, for their assignments. The teachers may or may not love them, but they might still want to use it. So the question is, how these kind of access to these large language model tools impact their learning. If we test them on the knowledge they gained or the skills they learned, are we going to see a positive or negative effects? And beyond that, we also want to say, okay, we're not going to take this for granted. We also want to shape it. If there are either a negative outcomes or unrealized potential from use of generative AI, how can we shape it? So our second question is about, let me actually add a pointer to it. Our second question is, can we customize ChatGPT to maximize or enhance learning? If we believe, the commercial public chatbots out there are not doing as good a job in kind of facilitated learning. And that's one aspect, can we kind of customize the technology? The third is our little attempt on, as a teacher, we may not have control on what the technology, how the technology behaves, but what we can control is, how we design our assignments, how do we design our practice problems. Is we want to take a little bit into what learning format, the task format, the kind of question you give, do these have impact on learning outcomes, especially considering the students are going to use the ChatGPT and the large language model tools. So those are the kind of the three questions we want to focus on. And I want to start talking about our design. So if you have a question or comments, feel free to put those in the Q&As. So I'll try to pay attention from time to time. I might address them if it's something that related to the current discussion. Okay, so how do we go about it? So we design a field experiment. So the field experiments goes with a kind of lecture session. As usual, the class session will start with the traditional lecture where the teacher deliver the content in the classroom. But then we added a assistant practice phase. What this phase is about is the student will use a laptop to do a series of practice problems. So some of them are multiple choices, others are problem-solving questions, more open-ended. And in this phase, we randomize the kind of the tool they have available. So basically have a split, we have screen on two sides. One side is the question, the other side is the tool. So we randomly assign them to 3 different tools. One of the 3 tools. The one is search engine. So basically we use the Microsoft Bing as a search engine. So students, if they want, they can ask question to the search engine, browse the list of results, and click through the pages as a part of the help. And the other tool is what we call base GPT. So the idea is we're trying to mimic what is the kind of standard ChatGPT behaves. So they get a question, they can paste the question to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will give them explanation and an answer typically. So that's mimic that. And the third one is what we try to customize it, what we call a guided discovery GPT. So this GPT is, we basically infused a guided discovery principle. In short, the cross discovery principle, we provide those as a prompt to the ChatGPT API. And this prompt may contain these 3 elements. One is do not provide answers. So refuse to provide answers, but we asked the tool, the ChatGPT, to help user break down the problem or structuring the thought processes. That's one. So kind of coming from the guided discovery principle. The second one is to provide background knowledge. So help student answer the question by providing background knowledge. So these are actually not too long the prompt added. So we call it guided discovery. Then after that, basically we at the end of the course session, we conduct exam, paper and pencil and proctor. So we kind of, at this point, there's no tool assistance. Unlike the practice session, there's no tool. So we want to measure how they have learned. When we did this, we basically matched the questions. So there are about 8 to 10 questions in the practice. We also have 8 to 10 questions in the exam that match the number of problems as well as the topic. They're not the same question, but they're on the same topic. So we kind of test whether that either giving them different tools and whether the using the tools led to different performances. We've done this with about 300 students across 7 undergrad and graduate analytics courses in one of the Chinese university. And okay, so here are some of the findings. I'll walk you through it. The first finding is we find it on average, the base GPT, which we mimic the standard ChatGPT, hurts learning. So when I say learning, it means the exam performance. So we try to measure exam performance without the tool. So what we find, as you can see from this chart, in this chart, I show both the practice session, because these are the practice problem. We can also grade them, look at the final answer, grade them. And there's exam questions also too. And on the vertical, you can see the average score. They are scaled to the 100-point scale. So clearly from this picture, you can see when we gave them the tool, the base GPT, compared to give them the search engine, in a practice phase, that could lead to on average 7-point performance increase. But that's only in the practice section. When we test them, that leads to a 4-point decrease in performance. That shows the learning actually, when you test them compared to search engine, they actually perform worse. So this confirms some of the suspicion and some of the existing evidence that the ChatGPT large language model has potential impede learning. So what about guided discovery, where we infuse the guided discovery principle? And here is what we found: it helps learning. So if you compare this gray bar and this red bar, here the red bar represents the guided discovery, and if you focus on exam performance, we can show that the guided discovery compared to search engine leads to a 9-point performance increase out of 100 points, which is a sizable increase. And of course, and this one's significantly better than the base GPT, the 3-point better. So with simple prompt and some pedagogical principles, we can actually change the outcome. I want to highlight that there have been a number of studies. Many studies report harming the results, ChatGPT and other large language models harming that result, but there are not many reporting this usage or access to these tools enhancing, because there's several experiments we look at, working papers and published ones. Their customer version were not able to improve learning, but here we clearly show actually it could improve. So that shows the potential of large language models as a learning tool actually can complement your classroom teaching and enhancing it, right? So we also look at the kind of the problems. This is kind of surprised us a little bit. We basically look at two kinds of problem: the selective response, which is a multiple choice, where students choose the answer among the maybe 4 different answers. The other one is constructive response, where they have to type answer. One example, we ask them to basically interpret logistic regression results and kind of ask them to evaluate ask them a question, how do you gauge the quality of your model? That sort of a question. They have to type and the answers. What we found interesting is if you look at the breakdown by the problem, the base GPT hurting performance is limited to the selective response questions. On the other hand, on the construct response questions, we actually see a net positive increase. So you can see on the left-hand side, we see a 7.8 increase in performance, even we students are using standard ChatGPT. And the opposite happens with the multiple choice questions, is that you see a negative 7.7, or rather a decrease in learning performance and exam performance. So what is telling us as an instructor is, if you're giving a practice problem or homeworks, the multiple choice gonna perform especially worse when students have access to those tools. But if you want to mitigate that, giving up the constructive response question might be better, even though students might still use the ChatGPT tools, but that actually that actually mitigate or even reverse some of the performance, the performance degradation. So this is a standard ChatGPT. What about the guided discovery? What we found is that the guided discovery is improving performance on both question formats. So on multiple choice, so you reverse the chat-based GPT, because base GPT is hurting, but the guided discovery is helping. You see a 6.5% point increase in performance. And with the constructed response, even stronger increase. And you can see this 18-point increase in exam performance. This is also significantly higher than what base GPT can achieve. In other words, base GPT can help learning in the constructed response problems, but they're not realizing the full potential of large language models. Guided discovery can achieve better in both cases. Okay, so having find this result, we want to understand why we saw this difference and kind of get some nuance understanding what does it imply. So we look at a few things. One is the practice time. So we measured basically when it see the question and when it submit the practice time. We look at them. So there's a clear pattern. So when you're comparing just the groups, the Bing and the base GPT group, they are indistinguishable, almost same time. And however, the guided discovery GPT, we saw a noticeable increase in learning time. In other words, students are spending more time on practicing than they use search engine or guided discovery. I want to emphasize here the comparisons made on having access to the tools, not based on actually using the tool, because our groups are defined by what tools they have available. So next one I actually break down a bit. If you look at actual tool usage, you'll find it's confirming our intuition. So we find in the search engine group, only 17% of students choose to use the tool. Whereas the base GPT, we find is 71% of students choose to use the tool. And with the guided discovery, also very high, but it's somewhat lower than the base GPT, we find it 85% of students using the tool. Okay, so there's a question about I'll address after discuss this slide. What's also interesting is, so that you can see clearly the large language model tools are much more popular with the students, and guided discovery tools is slightly less popular than the base GPT. What is also interesting is if you conditional the practice time onto being used, like these is students who use search engine, those are students who use the base GPT, students who use guided discovery, you can clearly see search engine actually, when they are using base GPT, they can almost cut their learning time by half. So this is really a speeding tools, significantly cut their actually time of answering the question. Whereas the guided discovery GPT, they remain the same. So that suggests to us that we have a hunch that when you use base GPT, it's very popular, but also they kind of using answering tool, because this tool, to give you an answer, they can grab answer and go. That saves you time in terms of how much time you spend on answering those practice questions. Where the guide discovery, on the other hand, don't kind of facilitate those kind of fast practice sessions. So the question I have is, do you think the result will hold for graduate student, PhD student, and K-12 students? So when we did this study, we include undergrad students and graduate students. So I think that I think those results hold for graduate and undergraduate students. I don't remember specific breakdown, but if I remember, we didn't see a significant difference there. And K-12 students, that's interesting. I certainly want to study it, but here are the few things I'm thinking. I think the usage the tools. I would think that from pedagogical standpoint, our results, I'm expecting them to hold, in the sense that because of the guided discovery, as I mentioned, it facilitated longer learning time, and in the next few slides, I also show other benefits, and those are more pedagogically sound, so that I expect them to have the benefits of enhancing the learning. However, I think with the K-12 students, what I'm curious about is their ability to, if you let them freely use the tool, I think the students, they might be having even lower AI literacy, they might have lower self-regulation, they might be more prone to just, this is my suspicion, but this is to be tested. They might more be prone to just take whatever the tools spell out and go. So not suspecting, these like standard ChatGPTs are actually could be harming their learning. So that I'm kind of seeing that could be even more a danger if we just let them to their own devices of freely using one of these public available tools. Again, so since we haven't tested on the K-12, this is my suspicion. Okay. The second mechanism is we want to kind of look at the kind of engagement they have with this large number of tools. So specifically comparing with the standard ChatGPT and also the guided discovery one, what we found is we're measuring the depth of engagement by the conversation round. How many questions they ask to the ChatGPT for each practice problem. We find that when they're using guide discovery, almost double the number of questions they ask. Like the standard GPT, they on average slightly more than one question. So they basically out one question and go. And then the other one, they ask about 2.2 questions. So actually do ask follow-up questions. When we look at the log, some of them ask clarification questions, clarify a concept, or dig a little bit deeper on what do you mean by that, or they ask some follow-up questions. And there also a portion asked for answers, like, can you give me the answers? Or because our tool says no answer, so they actually keep they just try to not refuse the answer. But we do have some students ask for answers. So what is the answer? But we saw some deeper engagement that are kind of facilitated by the guided discovery tool. And the third one is we look at the kind of what we call critical engagement. What is critical engagement means the students are not taking the large language model outputs responses as granted and copy and paste to their own answers. They need to critically evaluate and modify and adjust it to before they provide their own answer. So we basically compare the similarity between the student submit answer and the large language model provided response. The higher similarity, the less critical their engagement is. I think this concept is related to critical thinking, because critical thinking also says you should critically evaluate what's being provided to you, right? So you can see from the pattern that the blue bars is higher. The high similarity, that means less critical engagement, whereas the guided discovery shows lower bar, that means the lower similarity means more critical engagement. So that we do see that students are showing a higher degree of critical engagement, which is good for learning. And that when we run the result, it shows it is one of the mediator of the treatment effect. Okay, so we also done some subject evaluation. So after they use the tool, it's asked, how do you evaluate the tool, right? So we asked them about their evaluation of information quality, basically how the information produced by the tool, the answers or the search results, how they evaluate their intention to use the tool, and how useful the tool is, search engine or ChatGPT, and how they are intrinsic motivation is, right? Which shows across these four metrics, we find it students all agree that guided discovery tool is among the highest information quality, intention to use, and usefulness, and intrinsic motivation. So that's a great news in terms of our customization. So we successfully treated a tool that makes it at least subjective scenes more beneficial. What's also interesting is if you look at the result more closely, we'll find it's one anomaly here in this way. We find it, the student, if you ask them to read it, they would read the guided discovery being, they have a report a higher intention to use guided discovery. But if you recall what I showed you earlier, the actual usage of the tools actually shows clearly base GPT was higher, 70%, whereas the guided discovery is like 52, or I remember the percent. So despite the reported intention to use guided discovery tool, and they use the base ChatGPT more. This, when I look at the result, I was laughing because this is what the report I showed earlier was saying. They kind of know this ChatGPT might not be good for their learning, but they but they use it anyways, right? So it's kind of the paradox we're seeing. These tools are engineered to be highly appealing, and they can't resist using it, even though they know they might not be the most beneficial for learning. Okay, we also evaluated another series of metrics, which kind of their cognitive load. So this is about this from the learning science and learning literature is about how they spend their time, the brain energy, basically. So the intrinsic load, extraneous load, and German load. Let me briefly explain kind of this concept a bit. The intrinsic load has to do with the complexity of the subject. So they perceive a difficult problem, usually they spend more time just to kind of understand the problem or solve the problem. That creates a higher intrinsic load. And the extraneous load has to do with the delivery of the content. Because some from delivery, maybe long text, are harder to process than showing a picture with a good visualization. So the extraneous load in the text case is higher. Usually in the learning literature, they try to minimize the extraneous load because the easier the delivery mode is for communicate the same information, the better, right? So in both of these cases, we see the base GPT is rated as the lowest, meaning students find the ChatGPT result to be easiest to digest and also most conveniently, very easy to follow and digest the information, right? And the guide discovery also low, which is good, but not as low as base GPT. So this is consistent with the student's choice choosing ChatGPT more because they use 7%. The German load is different. German load is about high order processing, is usually associated with deep learning. This is about how our brain encoding the information into our long-term memory. So this is all treated in learning is kind of a hallmark of learning is one student actually encoding, not just simple processing of information, but actually encoding on what they learn into meta knowledge and knowledge so they can store in long-term memory that we can use in different settings. So we want them to spend more time on doing German load. So more German load is considered good thing as deeper learning. So what we find the good thing is that two ChatGPTs are themed as high and highest, and here the guide discovery come out as the highest, which is great news in terms of the tool, at least from students' perspective. And base GPT also regarded as high, and Bing is regarded as low. There's another sort of paradox that I found is, from students' perspective, the base GPT, they think they are learning because they think they are spending time or encoding the knowledge into the long-term memory, which is learning, and better than Bing. But we know from our objective tests that actually when they're doing the result is opposite, is the base GPT actually is worse in this worse exam performance. So in other words, they have illusion when using standard ChatGPT that they're learning, but actually they did not realize that they're not learning as much. So that's a kind of another danger or challenge with the suite of tools out there is that they could be a little deceptive, or students may not realize the potential of harm their learning. So in terms of this study, what are the takeaways? Let's see my time. The takeaways from this study is the standard ChatGPT hurts learning, but a customer discovery one can flip the results. We're excited that actually about the positive of the learning in this kind of assignment support settings. And the second one is a guided discovery facilitated learning because it can facilitate deeper engagement and more critical engagement and longer learning time, which is also a good thing. And also, I'm worried about the student. Two things. One is to overestimate the learning benefits of standard ChatGPT that could create, undesirable over-reliance on the tool. And we're also seeing the students, despite even they know this tool might be not as good as good discovery, but they actually choose to use it more. So that's another kind of knowingly kind of choose for the easy way or shortcuts. That's another kind of challenge that we should battle. So I guess I want to pause a little bit for questions. I wonder how I'm doing on time. I think it's 49. Okay, I got 20 more minutes. Okay, I'll just keep it going. So you can share a question in the chat. Knowing these two, I felt like even more urgency of not relying on the tech firms to provide the AI tools for students. We should think from student and instructor perspectives and to customize those tools and train these tools to be optimize the learning, optimize our pedagogical objectives, right? So that's the urgency of it. And that's consistent with this effort of SmartPAL that we created. So what is SmartPAL? SmartPAL is a tool, a learning platform it's meant to kind of sit between student, instructor, and Canvas. So Canvas is a learning management system, as many of you know, very popular one. So what is designed to address is two kinds of problems. One kind of problem is the student challenges. What we found is the students, when we go through a course, they sometimes face challenges, the problems. When we ask them, how do you solve these problems? Oftentimes they see instructors, TAs, and office hours as their last resort. They go for other means, Google it, ask ChatGPT, or ask their peers, study, go to search on their own. Last resort to coming to the teachers. That leads to many cases kind of unfulfilled support or untimely support to such students. And there are correlated issues is there are a lot of student disengagement, especially nowadays. There's so many distractions, but they also, when you're having the support are not there, it's very easy for students to be frustrated or, giving up, and therefore they're not as motivated and not able to realize learning potential. Not only the students, but also instructor also face challenges. One of the challenges we're facing is, as an instructor, we go through a semester, and oftentimes we only know how we're doing after the exams or after the end of the semester, and then you get the evaluations coming in. But a lot of times there are challenges students are facing we do not necessarily know, and because they're not telling us. That impedes our kind of iteration of a teaching improvement. And also the instructor being asked more and more. So we're asking, doing accessibility, doing flipped and record videos, and provide more personalized. There are so many things nowadays asking instructor, had we be Canvas masters and so on, that we're overwhelmed and not enough time to actually kind of focus their attention on both designed, optimal materials, also kind of provide personalized support that students would need. So how do we address this? So one way we can address is to automated learner support. This is addressing that sometimes students have challenges, but they don't get timely support. So naturally, we have introduced a chatbot connect to Canvas that provide 24/7 Q&A. Students ask course-related questions, whether it's logistics, grades, syllabus, or subject of the course topics, and so on. In addition to that, the tool, we also believe the students need proactive support. So they need personalized reminders, they need nudges, they need to provide feedback, and we want to keep track of their goals, help them to, hey, you're doing good on your course goal. So those are kind of the automate where part we can largely automate. I don't believe the automation is address all of the questions. Therefore, we also have another arm, which is to augment human in the loop support. More specifically, what we use is student reflection. Student reflection is opportunity because we ask students to do weekly reflection, and these reflections are summarized and given to teachers. So each week they can get some reflections, and then they can see, oh, here's the challenges students are facing. Maybe I can do something about it. So there's a question about student instructor able to see questions students are asking. So we give AI summary of the questions. So we need to anonymize those. We don't reveal the details, identity of these questions, or actually the question student chat history themselves. But in a reflection case, we do give the instructor a full view of those reflections. Okay, so here are a few examples. Okay, let me go back. So we designed element based on the self-regular learning theory. Basically, we want to start with goal setting, helping students execute the learning strategy, and then give them feedback, help them reflect. Those are actually elements of self-regular learning. And we kind of use the chatbot as its vehicle to facilitate this, either through reactive support or proactive support. And then having teacher in the loop too, because we cannot rely totally on AI. So here's quickly some example of reactive support. Student may ask, when's the next quiz? the chatbot will say, okay, next quiz is February 19th. What's also interesting is that it says, remember not to forward access code to anyone. So you might wonder how come the chatbot knows to mention this. Actually, this I'm guessing is from the course announcement. The instructor tell them, hey, here's the access code. You should not give it to someone else. So actually learn the context. Another example is, student doing a class maybe asking, what is the enterprise application? The professor might have introduced in the course, but students still get confused. And the chatbot is able to pull the resources like slides and lecture notes and kind of as a context and provide here's definition, here's examples. Quite a decent one, I would say. Help student another chance to revisit the concept they learned in class. Another example is student ask, how should I study for the exam? So it's the chatbots try its best to giving some suggestions. You should study the recent quizzes and maybe try the upcoming assignments and so on and so forth. So the tool is not perfect, but it's able to show to provide contextualized support. Here, example of kind of facilitate feedback loop. So we're giving a sample here, a summary of the reflections. So we asked two kinds of questions: what were working for students? This is actually after the first week. The instructor get, oh, students like them. I'm even doing a survey before, before the class begins, and also I'm actually engaging and listening, and they liked my pace. And they like that I'm already created groups that they can start already working together rather than kind of delaying further. On the other hand, the professor also get challenges students are facing. Some students were saying, okay, they flipped the classroom. It's been challenging. They're not used to it. And also there was technical issue with the Canvas or the notebooks that they're using, technical challenge. And students reporting they don't like being called randomly. As professors, we don't know, but students are mentioning that, and they have technical issues and so on and so forth. Interesting enough, when I would deploy, when we actually pilot with the many instructors, this feature is one of the most cited features. There are several the instructor piloting this tool said, oh, you know what, I learned a lot from this tool, because each week they can look at this and see, oh, discover something that they find they didn't know before that was kind of barrier for student learning, and then they can start addressing it. I know that many of the instructors are eager to help, but sometimes just not knowing what is the problem, right? So that tool kind of automatically facilitate that process. What we're trying to do, this is SmartPAL is a tool both as a research platform and also kind of as a product. So we want to kind of continue to build this product, and one which effort we try to do is, we want to kind of do broader research pilots, including collaborate with other instructors from other disciplines, not just businesses. In business, we've done with marketing, management, and our information system instructors, different courses. Also, we try to collaborate with different institutions. If you're interested to find out more about the tools or ways to collaborate, feel free to reach out, email me, or scan its barcode. There's a link where you can fill out your interest, and we can follow up. But I'm more excited about other potentials of what we call the reshaping the generative AI, because we're currently using generative AI for targeting student engagement, self-regulation, but there are many other ways we can help instructors and students, including promote responsible use of AI. Because one of the things is there are a lot of tension between instructor and students. The instructor suspecting students are using uploading their work assignment to AI, but they don't have a reliable way of detecting it, and not sure whether to ban it outright or just tolerate and worrying, student are not learning. And on the other hand, the student also have tension in a sense that, their students worried about, should I use AI or should I not use AI? And for two reasons. One is different courses make different policy. They worry about being accused of unethical use of AI, and they are also not trusting AI in terms of their benefits. Right? So there's attention for both sides. We really need to address this issue very quickly before this kind of bubbling up to an even bigger issue, among other topics, right? So we're still doing new experiments and new design effort to address using the platform to address those issues. I think, yeah. So these are the what I want to present today. So I actually have a few minutes to answer some questions. One of the question is, did I receive feedback from teachers on the use of SmartPAL? I do collect some surveys and also talk to them. What they found is, first of all, it's very easy, and there are a few kind of positive things they mention. One is when you're a student, the professor of large class, they do find it empowering to have we have a instructor dashboard shows student engagement on a weekly or real-time basis based on our measures. They find it empowering to know like which students are engaged in class using our dashboard and weekly newsletters. They find it helpful for them to either identify, or when a student asks for grades and they can show, yeah, you're not engaged and you actually don't deserve the grade bump. The second one, most often ones, the student actually, the instructor are telling us the feedback is very helpful to their teaching, because they got a lot of useful feedback from that tool that they didn't previously have, or it's too much trouble to actually go and collect those. Very interestingly, that one of my colleagues said, it's not like I didn't try to get feedback, but when I try to do weekly survey to students, they stop telling me after week 2. But your tool actually getting a very nuanced and detailed information from the student that seem to be genuine concerns or barriers, which is, I feel like, a big win. The I think the students actually, I've also collect feedback from students. Many students report liking the tool. They find it intuitive to use it, and different people like different features. Some people report this one quote from students that, this tool helped me stay on top of the course, because this tool is designed such. I'm happy that they find it tool that help them to stay on top of the course, so that they don't miss assignment or they don't kind of miss the opportunity to get feedback. And we're still doing more, but I think the general sentiment is the students find it a good idea, and they're happy they're getting this kind of support where they didn't get previous and didn't get before. This is kind of the extra boost to them, and the professors find it very easy to kind of, because these professors don't need to do too much other than giving us access to their course, and also they get automatic some benefits from the tool. There's also one question from previous is, there's a very good question, and what are the ways to structure use of AI feedback for students to critically interrogate suggestions? Within the platform, we have several ways of doing that. Not all of it has been implemented, but we did do some experiment on it. One of which actually students want feedback on their assignments. So they want to get feedback, especially after getting the grades. So AI tool actually is very powerful for generating feedback, quick feedbacks on like, what did you get wrong? Why did you get wrong? The kind of thing. They actually were implementing that feature when they ask. So we can both push and pull, like we can push to them when the grades are released. We can say, here's the quick feedback and call to actions you can do based on where you got wrong from the actual grading. And also they can ask about, how did I do on the exam? And students do ask them, and oftentimes they don't kind of get their personalized feedback. That's one. The second one actually is we're looking at the kind of assignment related feedback, and also encouragement students to critically engage AI tools, not as a shortcut tool, but actually as a feedback and coaching and advising and learning companion. So those actually also excited about the potential of those.
Hey.
Of course, there's one more question, last question. How How did I gain stakeholder engagement support to use SmartPAL tools for responsible AI learning? There are a lot of different stakeholders. I actually had no problem getting from this currently a student. We get about anywhere between 80%, now from 70 to 85% of adoption rate. And the professors have tried the tool, they keep coming back. And I tried to actually ask them to pilot, and many instructors are happy to pilot the tool. That I think the other stakeholders more challenging is, for the schools, universities, and there are other kind of a barrier to kind of consider. But at least I'm happy that the students seem to be happy in trying and keep using the tool. Well, I think we're 1 minute past, and thank you everybody for dialing in. And as I mentioned, feel free to shoot me the questions, or follow the link to fill out interest, and I'd be happy to engage more conversations after webinar.
And I'll just say, on behalf of the DSAI Hub, I want to say thank you to Dr. D. Liu for sharing your insights with us today. We appreciated hearing them. For all of you who are watching, if you enjoyed this webinar, please check out the next AI in Higher Education webinar scheduled for December 9. We'll drop a link to that registration in the chat, and that will be on building AI literacy across the entire pre-K through a higher education spectrum. So thank you again, Dr. D. Liu, and thank you to everyone for attending. Have a great day.
Thank you for hosting, and thank you for the opportunity.